And I'm actually in Singapore right now. And guess what time it is? It is now to 5 p.m. It is 5 a.m. I'm very crazy. Yeah. And the only reason I'm so fired up is because Kathy is here on the show. I have been a big fan of Kathy and I miss her so many times. I pretty much every single conference that she spoke at. But I really love her content. And today we are here to discuss how to ignite the creativity and the humor in your storytelling. So we are here for a treat. I'm so excited. And we are live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Periscope, and on YouTube. Let us know where you are joining us from geographically and social media wise. I see my friend Krista is here on YouTube. Hey, Krista. And so before we get started with our Q&A and interview today, I just want to let you guys know, just in case you don't know who this amazing lady is, and I just want to do a very brief introduction of Kathy, who is a highly sought after speaker, author, and a workshop leader and a comedian. Love that. And Kathy has 20 years in communication and innovation strategy on business and comedy stages in San Francisco in the United States. And Kathy is the author of a very interesting book called Stop Boring Me. And that's what we're going to learn today, how we can be more interesting and how we can stop boring our audience and in terms of content sharing and content creation. And Kathy received her education from Stanford University and MBA from the University of Berkeley. I think you are I just feel like you're so smart. Probably the smartest guest that I have ever had. And you and Seth Golden. I'm just kidding. Yeah. And anyway, everyone is awesome who has come to my show. But thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to learn more about storytelling and how we can add humor. So this is something I'm really new to. And so thank you so much for being here with us and joining us live from California.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for being up at 5 a.m. and being understandable and awake and alert on all these channels across social media at 5 a.m. So you make it look good. I'm not at your level till about 5 cups of coffee in. So well done. Well done.
Oh, thank you. We already got dozens of people join us live on LinkedIn. Hello, LinkedIn. And some people on Facebook. Hello, everyone. So Kathy, do you want to just add a few words to my very simple and brief introduction?
Oh, that was that was a great introduction. I would just basically really quickly add for people that so I spent 15 years in tech running marketing and communication and in high tech. That was my background. And I have an MBA and all that stuff. And I also studied for over 20 years, Second City Comedy Sports. I'm an improviser. I'm a comedian. I ran a comedy show. I still do comedy, stand-up, and improv. Whoa. And so I somewhere along the line about, 9 years ago, I said, this is silly. I'm living these two parallel tracks and I should bring them together because everything I learned about storytelling, here's the thing. I think everything I learned about storytelling, or most of it, like 90% of it, really came from the comedy stage. And I thought, why are we not doing more of this in business? And it wasn't in business. And certainly, I didn't learn that in marketing. I didn't learn in my MBA program. I mean, who does? I didn't learn that. I learned the comedy stage really taught me how to connect with people in the line of fire directly and make that human connection. And that's where I think we think humor's complicated, and it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be.
This is amazing. You pretty much answered my very first question without me even asking. So that's kind of your journey, which is really interesting. So before I get started, I just want to let everyone know that my dear friend from London, from the UK, I hope you are in London, Peter. So he's here and monitoring comments on different social media channels. So please feel free, because we always get so many questions and comments, and I oftentimes miss important comments here and there. So if you have any question, please feel free to tag Peter. He's on all the channels, and we are going to try to answer as many questions as possible.
Yeah.
And so on LinkedIn, and we have so many. Dan is here, Melissa is here, Michael is here, and everyone is excited to learn from you. And on Facebook, we have Chrissy is here, Dorothy and Sue, and everyone, and Nick is here. So thank you so much for being here, everyone.
Yeah.
And let's get started. The party started at 5 a.m. for me. Yes.
Yes, I think I see my hair melt across all social media. It's like so hot here. It's like she's up early. Kathy's got like super like 100-degree weather hair, and let's see how many channels we can spread this across.
I know I have this super like bright light in front of my face. That's why my face looks like so white. It's like super hot. Yeah. So, but anyway, let's get started. This is a very important topic. Many of my audience, they are content creators, marketers, and educators. They definitely want to learn more about this, and me too. So my first question for you is, you frequently speak at so many social media digital marketing conferences. Mm-hmm. The two ones that are coming up are Inbound and content marketing world, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you probably saw so many people presenting on stage and sharing their stories. So I really want to ask you, what do you think are the factors and benchmarks that contribute to compelling stories so that people can stop, listen, and remember, and maybe even take action? So what are some of the key factors that we have to think about and incorporate in our storytelling and creation?
Mm-hmm. So simply put, I think people, we too often look at storytelling as aiming for somebody's rational brain. But if you're aiming at the brain, you are aiming at the wrong body part. Like that's the wrong body part. You really need to you really need to hit people in the core, their gut. You're aiming for a different part of the brain, actually. So you're really looking at emotions. And I think, so I would say, first of all, I know everybody wants a formula, and I'm in Silicon Valley. Everyone's like, is there an algorithm that I can put this in and it'll pop out with this? And the reality is there is and there isn't. So put away benchmarks for just a second. And it's a really important question. And yet I think it's a little bit of a disservice, because what we really need to do is just, again, put logic aside. You're aiming at the emotional core of a person. So what does really well, what connects really well with in terms of storytelling is you've got to get to the heart of the challenge that somebody's facing. And it has to be deep and it has to be meaningful. And most of what we do in storytelling, I wouldn't call storytelling. And typically what I mean by that is this. You see this all the time in marketing. Well, the CMO had a problem. He had a bad day. And so he used our products, and then everything was great. The end. And that is not a story. That is not compelling. We don't even, like, this person doesn't even have a name. It's like the person that doesn't even put a profile pic on LinkedIn. There's just that silhouette. Like, give the person a name. Give the person a background, a title. What's their challenge? So the bigger issue is, I think, stories that move us have details. They have emotional resonance. They have details. And that is where I think most storytelling fails completely.
Yeah. Wow, I love this. I really think, I so agree. I think to have any long-term memory, there has to be an emotional component. That's why many people in the live audience, let me know if you can resonate with this. Many of us, including myself, we probably don't remember what we had for dinner last night, because unless it is a super special birthday party, because there's no strong emotional component and our heart is not being poked. So I really love what you mentioned. Yeah. How about for content creators, or for those people who are in businesses, that is at least on the surface level, it is very hard to kind of discover that emotional component. So any kind of tricks you can share, so people can actually, for people who are very new to this, what are some exercise? So how can we wake up our heart again in terms of creating stories, like human stories? Yeah.
Oh, I like that. We just need a defibrillator on the marketing heart and soul, on the soul, right? It's just like, Yeah, we do, because I think we've kind of a little bit checked out. So here's the thing I would start, because comedy is really the truth on steroids. And what we need to do is we start great storytelling and comedy. It's really no different. I mean, comedy is storytelling, and it starts with the truth. So if you really want to reconnect with it, really ask yourself, what is the truth that my audience is facing? What are they battling on a daily basis? What is their reality? Not mine, not what is not mine as a business, but what is my ideal audience facing every day? Maybe it's a deluge of email. Maybe it's a deluge of corporate mandates, but there's no support by their boss. Like, get to the human issue. You remember that Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Remember Psychology 101, everybody, where like Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I want that to haunt your dreams because he was right. And if we can remember that, what matters to every person isn't even the business part of it. It's, if my business sucks or I can't get this done in business, what's the human imperative? What's the human impact of not getting that done? Maybe I get fired. Maybe I lose respect. Maybe I don't have credibility. And if you can get to the real heart of the human issue that people are facing, you can create content around that. Now we're talking about emotions, not rationality.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love this. But many of us approach marketing from a really rational perspective. I think, that's why I love what you are doing. And my friend, Mark Schaefer, he has this book, How to Be More Human. I feel like, do you think that is almost like kind of a paradigm shift in terms of how we should approach marketing from this traditional rational and try to be not so emotional, but moving toward to be more human?
Well, it's interesting because everything old becomes new again. I actually think that this whole message started a long time ago. I think years and years ago. I think what happened is business just has been slow to kind of get it. B2B especially. B2C, and a lot of people argue that it's, I even named my company Keeping It Human because it really is about what people want is the human stuff. So I think this has been bandied about for a long time. And I think marketers are finally getting on board because if you look at all the content created,
True.
And you look at the fact that 90% of all content doesn't get traction. We're creating a lot of content that doesn't go anywhere. So why is that? Why is that? So we have to remember two things though, because I don't want to dismiss rationality. This isn't important. I'm going to geek out for just a second.
Love it, please.
Hear me, because it's important. It's not that rationality doesn't matter. It's that we have to create for two mindsets. What ends up happening is we don't make purely rational decisions. We get a gut feeling. I get a gut feeling about a company. I either like them or I don't. It's a gut feel. And then I turn that feeling over to my frontal lobe, and I make a rational justification for an emotional decision I've already made. So I have to hit the emotional core and I have to hit the rational. And most marketing is really good at the rational part, but is completely devoid of that other part. So I think things are changing. And I actually would say to people, if you want to look at your content having longevity and you're working so hard at content and you want it to have a better return on all your efforts, you got to incorporate more of the emotional core.
Wow. I love this. I remember a few weeks ago, I had my dear friend Jeff Hunter on the show. Many of you are here with us. I don't know if you guys remember. So Jeff and his team, so they did an experiment last year and they posted, I think, 4,000 posts on Facebook organically. And they discovered their best performing content is those related to human stories and actually his family. So I think we kind of need to figure out ways. Even the same, I also almost can guarantee, like myself, and when I post content that is purely promotional, like when I promote my show, it's not good. The content doesn't really go really well. But when I share stories, like poke people's emotion, the content is always much, much, much better. Yeah. So like you have a book called Stop Boring Us. So in your book, did you discuss some like important elements that we can incorporate so that we can be more interesting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. And Stop Boring Me has a bunch of different tools that come from improv comedy, stand-up comedy. And I took those threads and I weaved them into how to, you don't have to be funny. However, you can think like a comic and incorporate techniques that will take your content and kick it up a notch. And, you know, it really starts with thinking out of a transactional mindset. Get out of the transactional book report. This happened, then this happened, that's great. But it really is about making sure that, for example, if you're telling a story, give the person like a name and a backstory. Make us care about the character. And too often we skimp on character, but it matters because by the time we get to the plot, I don't care enough about the character to even, it doesn't matter because you didn't pull me in. And how many times do you see storytelling out there that talks about the company? The company did this, the company did that. Well, the company's not a character. I'm going to say it again. A company is not a character. Nobody wants to hug a company. We want to slap a company. We want to punch a company, but we don't want to hug a company. So we cannot hide behind the company did this, the company did that. That is not a story.
Well, I love this. So that is something pretty much we should definitely stop doing, right? Actually, this makes so much sense. When I have people follow me on like Twitter, Facebook, on any social media channel. So if the profile is just a logo, I feel like kind of this is a fake. I don't know, especially if this is not a big name brand, I don't even feel like following back. So it actually makes so much sense. Yeah. Well, you were talking. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say to that end, that's where you really can make a difference. And if you're going to post a story, you know, make that story have a character and conflict and contrast. And conflict belongs in storytelling. We're so afraid to do that. We're so afraid in business storytelling to show conflict. But let's face it, we all have conflict in our lives. And conflict is what pulls people in, because the minute people hear there's conflict, people lean in. The minute conflict comes in a story, what research tells us is that that's what pulls people into the story, because we've all had conflict and we're all listening a little and leaning in a little bit closer because we're thinking, I need to see how that character gets that conflict resolved. I faced a similar issue. How did they solve that? So characters, conflict, change, have these arcs in your storytelling. You know, get rich. Don't be afraid to get to those layers.
Oh, this is so interesting because you just reminds me of one of my recent posts on LinkedIn. So I started the sentence with why 50% of American colleges and universities will go bankrupt in the next 10 to 15 years. And that post performed so well. But if you think about it in retrospect, the first sentence really poked people's heart. Wow, this is really interesting. What's going on? What is she going to talk about? So I think we really have to think about even sharing our business related content to somehow, I think this is hard. It doesn't really come to us naturally. We have to almost like retrain how we think, how we market ourselves, and how we share our content.
Do you remember, some of the viewers out there might remember this moment. And it's not particularly funny, but I think it is relevant to your point that you just made. Because even if you're making a numerical statement, find a way to explain that in human terms. So years ago, Oprah, she went through, and she's been very public, and I love her for it. She's been very public about her weight loss battles. She gained weight, she lost weight, she gained weight. And it's what we all can relate to. And she lost all this weight. She showed up in her skinny jeans. And I don't know if you remember, some of your audience might remember, she wheeled out a wagon. And in that wagon, she had items in there that represented the amount of weight she lost.
Wow.
So if you start out with a fact, and there's nothing wrong with data, what's the story that I can translate that data to? So if you made a statistic in a post that said, look, 50% of such and such and such is going to happen, find a way to make that story relevant. IBM talked about the fact that 25%, I think, of food spoilage around the world means this many millions of people won't have food for the next year. Put it in human terms. Can you take a number and translate, what does that mean in human terms? It means this. I lost this much weight. Here's what that means. That means somebody else can eat this amount of food for 6 months. So if you can find a way to tell that story and take a data point and put a human wrapper on it, you can pull people in. And that's not particularly funny. And humor is really good for doing that. Humor takes us on a very personal journey and pulls us in. But if you can find that human angle, that's what people want.
Yeah. I love this. How did you say, how can we translate this into human terms? Wow, that is so profound, so deep. I really love this. So we have some questions from the live audience. So do you mind answering some questions now, Kathy?
Not at all.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And thank you again to Peter for helping us identify those questions.
Okay.
So the first question comes from my friend. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce the first name. Khoren joined us from LinkedIn, and I'm sorry. And so this person asked, what is the best way to do very short and influential marketing story? So I think, this is actually a great point related to one of my questions, because our attention span is short, especially for crappy content. There's no attention span for crappy content. So what are some ways we can do this, Kathy?
So there's a lot of ways. You can do a short video. You can do a short little video. You can ask your audience for stories. One of the things that I love to do is involve my audience, and I might start a story and ask them to finish it. And that gets audiences, start with a character and let them add on to it. So pull people in really quickly. If you have a good story, even if, I know this has been bandied about, everyone has a span of a goldfish, but I still believe that if you have great content that's a little bit longer and you pull people in right away, people will read it. People will read long.
Yeah.
But you've got to get, so I would say get to the heart of the matter very quickly. You can start in the middle of a story. It doesn't have to be at the beginning. Most of us are used to starting stories with the character. But what if you started in the middle of a story? The CEO got off a call. The bank, shut down his line of credit. And as he hung up the phone, he cried because it meant he had to lay off 300 of his own people. Wow. What if you started the story in the middle? Then you backed up. So you can start in the middle of a story. Boom, here's the challenge. And then pull people back in that way. So there's nothing that says you have to start sequentially in your story.
Yeah, I love this. And also goes back to what you were talking about earlier, creating some sort of conflict. Yeah. And then people are always like, that's why we love watching movies. There's that emotional twist. Yeah, this is great. So let's answer another question.
Yeah.
And this one from Jeff. And he asked, and also join us from LinkedIn. Thank you for being here. He asked you if you have any tips to shift from storytelling to story showing. Oh my God, I love this question.
Story showing, yeah. Yes. So this is where details are your friend. And I think where the more you can paint the emotional journey, because a lot of times what we do with storytelling is we're painting the story in terms of the setting and the character, but we forget that story showing is letting emotions hang in the air and being willing to say how you felt at the time. Have you ever been laid off? How did it feel for you? What if you talked about how raw your emotions were? You pull people towards you. So story showing has a lot to do with tapping into the emotional resonance of your audience. So get away from the external details and talk about how you felt. And and then check in with your audience. Have you ever been laid off? Has this happened to you? How did you feel? And then you can continue your story and you're checking for that emotional resonance. And I think that's a really important way to do that. So story showing is sensory. But the more details you can give visually and sensory and just emotionally, the more you are not telling a story, you are bringing people into that space with you.
I love this. And my background is actually in higher education. I truly believe the best education happens outside the classroom.
Yeah.
It is because we can involve all the senses, right? Our eyes, we can actually smell the food or touch whatever you are studying in your history book. You can actually be there in person to have that emotional connection.
Yeah.
So I really love this. And earlier you were talking about, because I really want to try to figure out some kind of strategies or tactics that our live audience can start taking action, baby steps. So you were talking about improvisation. How can we improvise? And I know you speak a lot about this at different conferences and in your book. So what are how do we incorporate this into storytelling, improvisation?
So improvisation it means a lot of things. So in the simplest way I can explain it is there's improv, that means improvised in the moment. And then there's improvisation, which is a discipline from the stage. And I think improvisation in short is saying yes and to opportunities and offers. So when you see somebody ask you something, like maybe somebody says something on a social channel and you go, that would make a great story. Use that as an opportunity to engage and maybe get a story out of somebody or to tell a story. There are many story prompts that happen all the time where you know that might be a really good place to tell a story. So hey, has this ever happened to you? Or somebody asks a question and that might be a great opportunity to say yes and in that moment and tell a story, or to add on to somebody else's story. So saying yes and to an opportunity in your social channels where somebody might say something to you that triggers a story for you, use that as an opportunity to tell a little short story or to have them tell the story with you. And so embrace these moments of improv. And so thinking like an improviser just means that we are adaptable and we understand that we don't have to control the story. That our audience has a story, and maybe we start a story and let them finish it or add on to it, and we're co-creating a story together. So here's a tip: you might even start a story. Here's a story. How would you make it better? Or here's an idea. I had this idea. Start that story with a character in a conflict. How would you win the story? Ask your audience to engage and to participate and finish that story with you. And
I love this.
We are so controlling. I think marketing likes to control everything. And when we let go and understand that our ending with a bow isn't going to be as powerful as what other people see in that story and the way that they would finish that story, we are going to learn some amazingly powerful ideas. They're going to be funnier usually than what we might kind of come up with. They're going to take it in a new direction. And we're going to learn a lot by the endings or the contributions of our audience. We're going to learn a lot about the way that they think. So being able to let go and tell stories with your audience, that's a whole other layer of improv and marketing.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's why I love being a live streaming show host, because this content co-creation, this knowledge co-creation, and you guys are asking me questions, kind of shifting and influencing the content of this show right now. It is happening right now. But at the same time, also makes this a little bit more scary, especially, I don't know about you, Kathy. You just look so natural, so amazing. But when I started my journey to...
Stop it. I'm kidding.
When I started this journey to put myself in the public space, took lots of courage, especially as a minority. I don't see many people like me in this digital social media space. So I wonder, I'm sure many people in the live audience, many of you guys, I don't know if you have answered my question right now, if you have embraced like video or putting yourself out there and sharing moments that make you feel vulnerable. So if you are not there yet, I wonder if you have some tips because open up, sharing emotions involves lots of energy and courage. So I wonder if you have some tips for our live audience to encourage them to be out there, to start sharing their stories, because I know once I put myself out there, my life is different. I really love this. And so many amazing things have happened to me. So please share some tips with our audience so they can, embrace more of the human side of their life.
Yeah, there's a couple ways, when we talked about the truth is the essence of comedy. It really is. It's the essence of story. And there's truth of your audience, and then there's your truth, which is what you're talking about, being vulnerable with your truth. And I think it could be daunting. So don't feel like you have to do it all at once. But if you just start sharing little things that, even if it's just small little things that, your audience can laugh at. And I'll give you an example. I am the world's most awkward hugger. I'm an awkward hugger. I'm an awkward hugger.
I can't wait to do that at Improv. We're going to go live.
I'm such an awkward hugger because people will go in and try to hug, and then I don't assume the hug, so I stick my hand out, and it's like, no, and then it's like click, and then I'll go to hug, and then they stick their hand out, and we're like crab clawing it for like 5 minutes before we figure it out. And it's hysterical. And so start small. So I put out on Twitter, I don't know, a few months ago about that I was a very awkward hugger, and this happened to me on a plane, and I took a picture and I posted it and people just started laughing and engaging about their awkward hugs and where they feel awkward. And people were like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one. No, you're not. Because I never assume that people are okay with hugs. And I am a hugger, but I don't assume it. And I started getting stories from all over the place of how they feel awkward in a hug or a handshake. They're not sure how to do the handshake. And just little things can be so human. And the littlest thing, we call them gifts in improv. The littlest thing, the littlest offer can be a gift because it's such a small thing, but you're not alone. Chances are if you feel awkward or you feel like a misfit, everybody else is. And here's the thing I've learned in 20 plus years of being out there is that here's the one universal. You feel like a misfit, here's the truth. Everybody feels like a misfit about something. We are all misfits about something. That's a universal.
I love this.
Yeah.
And I actually very interesting. So I really believe vulnerability creates connectivity. And every time when I allow myself to be vulnerable, and I discover, I'm definitely not alone. Many people are like this. Yeah. So true. Yeah. And I just want to give a quick shout to my friend Diana, #dancing Diana, and on LinkedIn, and my friend Jamie. So thank you for being here, and many others join us right now. So we are talking about how to add more humor and creativity to our storytelling, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and LinkedIn. So all those are such great points. And another thing that you also talk a lot about is this yes and kind of mentality to innovation, storytelling, problem solving. And so first explain this to us. What do you mean by yes and?
I love this question. It's such a great question. So let me explain it, and then let me show you how it's used. So yes and is the cornerstone of improv, and what it is it's how we build scenes on a stage. So we'll get an audience suggestion, and then what we'll do is improvisers will start something, and this concept of yes and is what moves the scene forward. And what it really means is three things in practice. It means that we're listening. The hardest thing about improv is that you have to listen to what people are saying to make an offer. And somebody may say something really small, but it could be an offer. So we have to listen. Number two, we have to accept the reality that somebody offers. If I come on stage and somebody else comes on at the same time when I'm on a comedy stage, I don't drop what I'm doing. I have to find a way to integrate. I have to yes and what the two of us are doing. And then third, I have to add on to it. And is very important because and moves the story forward. So if I just say yes, if you say, hey, Kathy, let's go out to dinner, and I'm all, yeah. And you're like, where? You ever do that? You ever have a conversation? Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? And it's like it never moves forward. So yes, and is I hear you, I accept the offer that you've given, and I'm going to embrace that, add on to it, and move it forward. So an example is, I'm just at the top of my head is I was doing a show, and I came on the scene the same time as another improviser, and I endowed myself. I came on as a vampire, and he called me mom. He said, "Mom, okay, so who's right?" We both are. I'm a vampire mom. And so in that moment, you know what? I am the best damn vampire mom you ever saw. Sweetie, you can't go to school without drinking your blood. You need to have some iron. So you're going to drink your blood. Then you're going to go to school. Oh, and don't forget sunscreen. We can't have you blowing up just midair, right? And so you're going to embrace both realities. And so what does that mean in business? So here's what it means in business. Too often we fight. Well, that's a dumb idea. That's not my idea. We should use my idea. Your idea is bad. And we never move the ball forward. And so a yes and mindset in innovation means let's figure out, even if you say 10 things that only one thing I agree with, let's find the one thing that you and I agree on and move the ball forward. So we're not arguing. And we're taking the company forward. So if you said to me, Kathy, I want to create a new type of product that's going to allow students all over the world to get a mentor, I'm going to say, oh, and yes, and you know what else we're going to add to that? We're going to allow people to not only get a mentor, we're going to allow them to have virtual internships. And then you add an idea and I add an idea, and then we end up somewhere really cool because you and I added on. We added on. It's a powerful thing. And the reason, and I'll stop here in a second because it's such a big, important thing, but I can't emphasize this enough, is that too often in life, we have a yes, but. Yes, but that sucks. Yes, but that's a bad idea. No, but. And we do this to each other too much in business. And I think it shuts people down. And we need to stop doing that, because when we do that, people stop trying, they stop giving their best, and we need to start yes-anding, because when we yes-and more, it changes not only what's possible, it changes the energy around us and the relationships with people around us. So that's how important it is. That's how important.
Wow, this is like just so many great points. It is so true. And now as I think about this is such a great way to engage in small talks, content creation, so you can actually, it's like just grows, amplifies, right? And that's true. Reflecting on how sometimes I talk is this, like even like, starting a show or like putting yourself out there, going back to what we just discussed, people say, yes, but that is just so true. You figure this out, Kathy.
Well, it's the cornerstone of improv. It goes back years and years and years. And that's how we create great scenes. And that's why improv is so magical, because we know something about how to move the ball forward. Yeah. And so here's the challenge to everybody out there. If you're tempted to say yes, but, catch yourself and ask how you can switch it to yes, and. And it may seem like a small thing, but if somebody keeps yes butting you, you know how you feel, it gets on your nerves. And if you switch to yes, and, see how the energy in the conversation changes, because now people feel heard. What would it be like to feel heard?
Wow, I love this. So powerful. Yeah. And also, I have been, even while I was doing my dissertation, so my research methodology is actually conducting in-depth interviews. And the hardest interview was with those people who only say yes. Like even when I ask an open-ended question, even for my own live streaming show, sometimes when people only, how do you feel about this, right? They say, oh, yes. There's no like, I need more. So I think, exactly. I always say this. I think the hardest part of hosting my show I learned is really to be able to improvise, like asking questions on the spot, especially when you have someone who is kind of just a yes answers at every single question, like a yes, no. They don't really go further to elaborate. So you really have to be able to ask this yes and have a kind of a follow-up. So powerful.
Yeah, so, and we're all improvisers. You're an improviser. I'm an improviser. And on the business stage, I really believe that we're all improvisers. In business, we are all improvisers. We have to embrace that.
Yeah. So I can definitely see this yes and approach applies to live content, like what we are doing right now. But how about other types of content, like, blogging or maybe podcasting? So how can you more like a solo type of thing? So how do you like incorporate the yes and approach to be more creative and innovative and interesting?
Yeah. So a lot of times ask yourself where you can let go and try something new. So maybe somebody will give you an idea in a blog post. Maybe somebody will give you ask a question, or somebody on a social channel. Ask yourself, can I integrate that and be better for it? Can I add on to that idea? Well, that's interesting. What if I actually blogged about that? What if I yes-anded that and used that idea to create some new content? Or what if I went back and I redid some content because somebody added onto it in a whole new way? Or what if I put my content out there and asked the community to make it better? Could I let go and co-create?
Yeah.
So there are many ways. And I think part of why marketing gets into kind of a boring rut is because marketing likes to control everything. And I think marketing thinks, in most marketing departments, they're like, well, it's got to, if it doesn't come out of marketing, it won't be any good. And yet, that's absolutely not true, because customers have great stories and employees have great stories. And sometimes the best storytellers are not in marketing. They're the employees right down the, in cubicle row.
Actually, yeah.
And yes and those employees. How can you yes and an employee that's got a great idea for a story?
Yeah, this is so good. Yeah, and nowadays, like, I think recently I listened to maybe a podcast interview, and someone shared, like, when you are engaging with people in the comment section, and pretty much this person was talking about this yes and approach. So instead of just saying, oh, this is a great point, but have an and, and how about this? Or how do you do this? So that is such a great way to grow conversations and to co-create and to deepen relationships. So everyone, another challenge, start using this yes and approach to commenting and engaging with people in the comment section. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. So let's do another question from the live audience. Okay, so this is kind of interesting question. So is storytelling actually storytelling? The practitioners of stories are, after all, self-interested. Yeah, this is actually a very interesting question. Thank you for asking, Alan. So really kind of like, we share interesting story, but we also have our own agenda. Yeah. So what do you think about this, Kathy?
It's a great question. And I think stories can take different forms. And I'm so glad that somebody asked it. So sometimes, like, for example, you might have an origin story, and yes, you have an agenda, and it's maybe about you, but it's really not. Somewhere along the line, you have to take the bridge and make it about your customer and your community. And there's different types of stories to be told. One of the things that I think we have to do as practitioners is let go of our agenda. Because we can. Sometimes we have an agenda for telling a certain story. And sometimes we have to put a story out there and be open to the feedback we get. Because sometimes you've seen this happen. Like, because you came out of academia. You might have told a story, but somebody saw something in it you didn't see. And they took away something you didn't see. And maybe there's another layer there you didn't anticipate. So I think as storytellers and also content creators, when you put a story out there, you have to understand that other people are going to add on to it, see it differently, and it might take shape in a way you hadn't expected. And I think this is where you have to kind of let go a little bit and be willing to see what worked, what didn't. And I think this is where I think sometimes people can manipulate stories, and marketing can sometimes be manipulative. And I'm not talking about that. We shouldn't manipulate.
No.
But we have to be very open. And I think we need more honest storytelling. That's unpolished.
So true.
You know what I mean?
So true.
Yeah.
So true. I think that's why people hate marketing so much. It is because of the manipulation, the hidden agenda, whatever. Yeah. But I think what you are talking about is like to really spotlight, for example, an employee who has an amazing story to share and bring those people to the stage to share their raw emotional stories. Yeah.
Yeah. And stop having it run through the marketing filter. I know I'm going to say something that a lot of marketing people out there listening, my head explode. They'll be like, oh, that's blasphemy. That's marketing blasphemy. She didn't say that. I did. I think we're so used to running everything through the marketing filter, but marketing, the biggest issue is trust today. You know this so well. People don't trust marketing much anymore. So what if we let go a little bit and we said, all right, there's got to be rules. You can't say certain things. I get it. But what if we let go and trusted that the best storytellers that are employees in our company can tell it their way? Why does marketing have to control everything? And I think we're going to see, as we evolve to being more human, we need to start seeing storytelling that lets go a lot more and stops trying to manipulate and steer. Marketing's trying to control the steering wheel. And everyone's like, let go, let go, let go. And marketing's like, no. And
this is like fascinating. Yeah, it's like music to my ears, because you mentioned I come from academia. I hope I don't have any of my friends in academia watching this. But oftentimes, this is what happens. If you want to innovate or do something different, be creative, they're like, oh, this is your budget and you can do this, you cannot do this. And all those are boxes. Like, how can I innovate? Breaking all those boxes. And you are giving me all those like boxes that I have followed. That's not innovation. I don't know what it's called. It's like making some small changes within the parameter. Yeah, exactly. So I love what you're talking about here.
Yeah. We have to let go. We have to let go. And what's going to happen if somebody comes to you, one of your customers, and has an awesome idea for a story and wants to share with you? Are you going to say, no, sorry, it didn't come through the marketing filter? That would be insane.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, like I'm pretty sure at many higher education institutions at school, maybe even K-12, like the content that we want to share on social media has to go through layers of approval. And by the time the story is out, it's outdated. Yeah. So it's so true. I think if we have any leaders watching this right now, or join us on replay, I think this is such a great tip. It really has to come from the top. Start implementing some policies that encourage, create a safe place, like failure friendly, psychological safety space for people to be able to make mistakes without worrying, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job, but to really innovate and within a safe zone. Yeah, I love this. Yeah.
Well, and if we're going to talk about humor just for a second too, really, really quickly, is that, again, we can't hug a brand. So a brand can do funny things, but I think it's more powerful when you tell a story through an employee lens. And if an employee or a customer has a funny story, it's much more human. It's much more powerful. I mean, funny videos are one thing, but how much brand content that's funny gets shared? Very, very low. Usually the funniest content is not created by brands. And there's a reason for that. Find the human in the story, find the human storyteller, and that's what's going to drive that story. So don't be afraid of embracing some of the vulnerable and the funny things internally and highlighting that, but putting a human, maybe employee face on it or a human customer.
This is so true. And some of the brands that I really love are those that there is actually human being behind the brand. Either way, we talk to each other on social media, or I follow them on Instagram I saw the human side, and then it makes a huge difference. So let's do another question here. And thank you again to Peter for gathering all those questions. So this is again asking from my friend on LinkedIn, what are the main things that can catch audience attention? So I guess the question is, we're talking about being human, emotional element. So how does that manifest in terms of some specific like formats that we can do, like hashtag, catchy titles, and white space? So what do you think about this, Kathy?
So are we talking sort of like content types or just more?
I think so. It's like I interpret this question as kind of, we're talking about humans. So how does that manifest? Like, what are some, I guess, triggers or signs that we okay. So those are actually a manifestation of the human side of who we are. So I think this is actually a great question for people who are kind of like getting started on this. So are there like certain hashtag we should use or catchy titles that we have to incorporate to manifest or to kind of back up the human side of the story. Yeah.
Definitely. So you want a great story. You also really need to pay attention to headlines and pull people in. Start with the best part of the story. Start with something that grabs people. And I think this is where there's an opportunity to take your content to that next level. So for example, here's a headline I saw the other day, and my eyes rolled back in my head because I was like, it was, should sales and marketing work together? Should they? And I was like, does anybody saying they shouldn't work together? Is that even a thing? So is there a way, but it is an important issue. So ask yourself, how can I take that topic and put something new on it? Remember, a lot of times people tune out because they've heard that topic before and they're looking for something new. Can you add something new on it? So think about, pull the lead out, find a headline. So instead of can sales and marketing work together, you might say something like this, sales and marketing didn't work together and here's what went wrong. Or here's 5 lessons that we learned from because we didn't work together well. Can you find a way to hook people into a learning mode? Yeah.
Oh, I love this. I also love how you mentioned like sales and marketing. My friend Vicky O'Neill, she's going to come to my show to talk about the differences between sales and marketing. So that's such a great point. Yeah. And we are just wrapping up here. And another question I really want to ask you, because we were talking about this, and you have such an impressive educational background, Kathy, Stanford, Berkeley, amazing schools. And my background is also in education. So I really want to ask you, when it comes to be a creative, innovative storyteller, problem solver, so to what extent and in what aspect our education has or has not prepared us to be like creative, innovative, and thinking outside the box? And what are some of the missing links in our educational system so that, we can supplement at home, because we're not going to get that from any school. And so if you can share with us, given that you come from such a, like both schools, you say Berkeley, Stanford, they're amazing, especially Stanford in terms of innovation. They have the innovation center. So share some with us, the missing links. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's such a great question. And to take something like that I could say in an hour, let me distill it. I think that's where comedy and improv really rounded me out. I'll be honest, I can say that now because I've spent half my life on a comedy stage, and I still perform, I still teach. And the thing about it is, school teaches right and wrong. It doesn't teach areas of gray. It doesn't teach collaboration. It doesn't teach us how to yes and. It doesn't teach us how to be okay with ambiguity. And sometimes there is no solid answer. We have to be able to take shades of gray and say, well, let's figure this out together. And comedy is about emotional resonance, and school never taught me that. So school is great for developing your emotional quotient, but if you really want to be great at marketing, you need to develop your emotional quotient and your curiosity quotient and your playfulness quotient. Comedy. Go take an improv class, take a bunch of improv classes, learn how to let go, learn how to get out of your own way, learn how to be okay with just collaborating with other people and not having to know the answer and saying, I don't know, but let's figure it out together. That is a powerful thing that I think schools don't do well on. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this. You know what? I'm going to listen to the part again and again because it is so true. And I love how you many of our students, and even I don't think we have an effective system to evaluate our students. And that's why we need a clear answer, yes or no. But you can't be like, this yes and it's very hard, especially when you are teaching large classes, 300 students, 400, 500, like a zoo. How can you allow room for ambiguity? It is very hard to actually implement that at institutional level.
It is, and that's where innovation lies, because the single greatest thing that we need, all the reports I'm seeing, the single greatest skill set in demand is creativity, the single greatest skill set. And it's the one that employers keep saying time and time again, that they're not getting enough of. And that is because we're not teaching people to think, but we're also not rewarding it in companies. Companies, if you want to see people work together, then reward collaborative behavior. I'm going to say it again. You want to see people work together? Stop rewarding individual behavior only. Reward team goals if you want to see that kind of behavior. So we need an alignment of the education system, and we need an alignment with the way that we reward people in companies for the work that they do. And comedy, don't take comedy classes.
Oh, wow. I see. That's our homework, everyone. That's why you're so amazing. I love also, talking about this. I think you mentioned in one of your talks, like innovation is about human being, right? Like this human, and then like you were also talking about comedy is emotional resonance. Wow.
Emotional resonance. That's all it is. Start small. Find something. Find. For me, it's the awkward hugger. Find something small you can be vulnerable and funny and laugh at yourself at, and form that connection. It doesn't have to be like personal, revelatory, self-deprecating, but it can be a small thing, a small little thing. But start that conversation. And yes, and in the conversation.
Yes, and I'm gonna make a t-shirt. You have a t-shirt. Yes, and
yes, and somebody gave me a button yet. I'll leave you with this. Somebody gave me a button because I've been doing comedy for so long, and it says, "Improv girls say yes and."
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I love this. This is so good. Yeah. I'm definitely going to implement. And let me know in the comment section, everyone, if any of you is interested in a comedy class, so we can actually grow together. And it is such a great point, because hosting my show, and like there are so many people who told me they come to my show because of my personality. I'm kind of semi-crazy. So like, it is very interesting I think resonated with what you talk about, that personality, people can find emotional resonance. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, so many amazing points, but I really want to respect everyone's time. So what is next for you, Kathy, and how can we support you? You dropped so much value, and I can't wait to rewatch this myself to learn more. Yeah.
Well, if folks want to reach out to me, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to keepingithuman.com and learn a little bit more about me. I work with teams and use comedy. Comedy and storytelling are my tools to get to business objectives. You can reach out to me on Twitter. If you're interested, there is the book Stop Boring Me. And if you got questions, I'm happy to answer. Just continue the conversation. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm going to share your social media handles, website, Keep It Human, in the comment section. And I know you are about to start kind of like, is it like national or international speaking tour or something? So you want to drop some locations just in case people want to connect with you in person or check out some of the events that you are speaking at?
Yeah, I'll be speaking, in the next 4 weeks, I'll be speaking in Wisconsin. I'll be speaking in Boston at Inbound. I'll be at Content Marketing World in Cleveland. I'm going to be in Germany. So I'm going to be international and domestic. I'm going to be, there's too much event, not enough Kathy. We're on a world tour. I don't know where I am. Where am I?
We're still okay. If we can make that happen, I'd love to see you in action. Check out some of your shows. So this is such an incredible interview. I learned so much, so many great points, and so many tweetable moments. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. Join us live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope. I really, really appreciate you guys. So who is coming next week? And I have my friend. I'm going to share his Twitter handle. So he actually just launched a book recently, and also relates to being vulnerable. And he and his friend, they actually use this, like being vulnerable, being more human, as a way to help you stand out in this noisy social media and digital space. So it's my friend Leonard Kim. Do you know him, Kathy?
I know who he is. I don't know him really well personally, but I do know. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So I will share the screen, you guys, if you want to kind of follow him. And so Leonard Kim, very funny, very interesting, and has definitely embraced humor and the emotional side of storytelling. Yeah. So he's coming to my show, and next Wednesday I will be back in the United States. So look forward to to interviewing him. And thank you so much again. I hope you guys can join. And thank you so much again, Kathy. And everyone, make sure that you follow Kathy and check her out and listen to her speak and in action if possible.
And thank you, because you've come, this journey of yours has been amazing. You inspire so many people. You are, talk about emotional resonance. You are an example of that. And you're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, you're taking new ideas, and you continue to just bring them into and integrate everything you do. And you inspire me, and you inspire so many. So I can't let you get off with this call without saying thank you to you. You can't just leave. You can't just disappear.
Oh, that makes me much to me. Thank you. See, now I want to keep talking. Okay, my dear friend, that's why he's so amazing. He shared your social media handles already in different social media platforms. So that's Kathy's website. Please check it out. Lots of interesting content. I actually binge watched many of your videos on LinkedIn, on YouTube. They're amazing, and people can see you speak from your heart, right? And I think that's
I try.
That makes a huge difference. Yeah. Anyway, I know I can just keep talking, right? Thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you either in Philly or in Boston at Inbound. So everyone follow Kathy. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.